Hi, everyone. This is Tom, and this is part three of jobs I had while being raised by a strict Catholic mother in the 1960s and 70s in the Washington, D.C. area. And as a side note, there were five other brothers and sisters that I had, and she gave the same individualized attention to each of us. So she was incredible. Anyway, it's 1974. My mom has just kicked me out of the house, and I have an apartment on Connecticut Avenue near the National Zoo, and I need a job. And at that time, I got contacted by my uncle, who was a higher up in the New York City construction business, and he said, Tom, go down to 14th and I, where they are just breaking ground for the new Washington, D.C. Metro subway, and they have a job for you down there if you're interested. I was, and I went right down there the next day, and there were 100 or so humongous African American gentlemen down there looking for jobs. And I was on their list, and he said, you start tomorrow at 4 in the afternoon. You will be getting paid double time because you'll be working from 4 until midnight. You will also be getting hazard pay, which is another time. It was another half of a time. So it was double time and a half for me to work pouring cement, moving cement around about 3 stories underground from 4 until midnight at 14th and I in DC. And I was excited. I was a hardworking kid. They weren't going to scare me away. So I went down there for 3 years from 1974 until 1977, and they were kind of impressed. I hustled in that cement that was up beyond my knees, and I had to move these big hoses around to move cement. But they pulled me out and they gave me some lighter duty sometimes because they realized that I wasn't a giant like these other guys I was working with. But that lasted for 3 years, and my buddy Danny Lynch came home one day to our group house and said, if you're looking to make good money, you should get in the restaurant business in Georgetown in DC. And sure enough, F. Scott's was hiring, and that was the #1 restaurant in DC. It was a very popular place to go to, right next to Georgetown University, part of 1789 and the Tombs. I went down there. I got a job as a busboy, and this was 1977. And I worked there for 8 years until 1985. But I partied hard, and these Catholic school guys were welcoming me with open arms. And we would start poker games at 2 in the morning until 8 in the morning, and I would take a taxi home just feeling awful. And I knew I was headed for trouble. And sure enough, 1985, I told my boss, I'm leaving. I can't do this any longer. I've got to find another life. I was getting close to 30 years old. So I moved in with my sister Nancy, and we looked for jobs around the Houston area. And I found one in the restaurant business at Atascocita Country Club, just outside of Houston. And it was a good job, but again, partying too hard. I had a serious drinking problem, and I needed an answer. So I left there. I went to Boston. I lived with my sister, another one of my sisters, Janice. And I stayed with her in Hingham, Massachusetts, and I ended up getting a job in the bar business in Boston and at Faneuil Hall at Cityside. And a lot of fun. We really partied hard. And I really needed to, hit rock bottom, I guess. And I sure enough did. I came to work one day, and all the entrances were blocked by employees, and they said, you no longer work here. And so my boss said, you have a great insurance policy with us. You can get free rehab right nearby. So I went to Lake Sunapee, New Hampshire, and I was there for a month and came out and was just shocked at how happy I was. as I was clean and sober for the first time in many years. And so I got a job in Maryland after staying with another sister named Maggie. And Maggie helped me get on my feet, and I got a job at Giant Food, and I was as a cashier, and then I worked towards a management position. And I thought I might actually get into the management program there. It was 1987, and it seemed like a good idea to me until I realized I had no skills in that area. It was not working out. So 1987 to 1992, I'm working at Giant, and a customer comes up to me and says, "You have 5 different kids from different families working in this store for you, and they work for you all the time. Why don't you get a job as a teacher? Go back to school." So I did. First I went and volunteered at Diamond Elementary, and they said, "Yes, you need to go to school to be a teacher. This is your calling." So I went to University of Maryland in 1992 for a degree in elementary education, and it was wonderful. I was working from 2 until 10 at night at Giant, and then in the mornings I would go to take class at Maryland. I loved it, and it was not too hard at all. And I had worked so hard as a kid that this was easy for me. My friends were really surprised that I could handle this workload, but no problem for me. And I had a vision. I had a vision of me as a teacher. First grade, working with a bunch of kids. I was so excited about it. So in 1995, I started to wrap up my college career, and it was the fall of 1995. I had just finished my student teaching, and all paperwork was on hold because there was a little thing called the O.J. Simpson trial that was coming to a close in October of 1995. And so my mentor teacher said, "Hang tight. We're a little backed up in our paperwork." So eventually I got my paperwork done, and I remember the lady from the bursar's office, if you remember my first video. She came down and shook my hand and said, "Young man," because I was just turning 40. She said, "Young man, you need to go and teach now because your college career is done." I was so excited. I couldn't believe I was going to be a teacher. So what happened when I was a teacher? That will be part 4.